Hey everyone, here is the FV101 Scorpion, a British-made tank that is, I think, the only tank out there that is made out of aluminum, the real tank, driven by a Jaguar engine, made super lightweight so it's air portable, and I made a 3D printed version of it that I'll be selling as a kit. It's set up to be remote control and fully functional with the Tamiya or Henlong combat system using a Clark board. And the whole thing's 3D printed. I didn't do any sanding or finishing work on the whole thing. Like, this is all the raw 3D printed parts with paint slapped on it. I used some Krylon Fusion. I love Krylon for durability. This stuff like sticks to plastic and will not come off basically unless you sit there and sand it off. But on top of that, I used just a black wash and a couple detail parts I painted on. It has a mesh guard over the exhaust, little mirrors and antennas. This same wire is used in the suspension for the tank. And over the whole tank there's multiple hatches. Like, this radiator hatch has the volume, power switch, and voltage meter. That little voltage meter shows how much battery is left. And then in the back there are 4 removable panels. I keep the spare parts in there, spare tracks and stuff like that. And when you buy your kit, it'll come with several different variations, like these storage boxes up here. There will be the other, I think the newer version has large storage bins on the side and a really long one in the back. Their kit will have all of them, so you can choose which ones you want to put on. And this back hatch you don't even need if you don't want, because inside there, that vent, all that detail works on the tank. This tube's actually for the air intake for the crew oxygen system. So if there's like biochemical attacks or something like that, this thing can filter that out. It took me forever to figure out what that was for, but that's what it's for. And if you put a smoker unit in your tank, this exhaust pipe actually is 3D printed with a hole in it. So in the inside you can connect a smoke system to right here, and it should come all the way out. There's also hatches on the turret that open. All these are just press fit in too. They work really nice. Just a little press fit is all it needs, not to open up. And the top turrets are hinged. The same nails you use to hinge the tracks, you cut the nails and use them, super glue them in the hinge. And I use a Clark TK22 board in my tank. I love those boards. I'd recommend it. This actually set up with mounting holes for that board. And through Clark you can order this thing right here. It's the plug for the Tamiya Apple, which is basically the IR combat system. And just barely enough space, but it fits in really nice there. And I also have an Apple I got on eBay a long time ago. I actually modified it. I think they still sell these, but this one also fits in here. It's a little nicer because it's not quite as obvious, but it still works. The actual IR pickups are in behind those little drilled holes. But if you don't want to use that, you can easily use the Tamiya one. and the entire tank has been designed from the ground up for ease of maintenance and assembly. I've had two Henlong tanks before, and they're always kind of a pain in the ass to work on. Like on mine, to get access in the turret, it's super easy. You open up that hatch, pop the cover off. It uses a little clip. It's like little arms that clip onto a little nub in there. And then the turret top lifts off. And I put plugs on everything, so it's easy to just set aside. And in the turret there, this whole half of the turret is empty just for wires and stuff. And over here there are two, I don't know if they're micro or mini servos, but one of them's for the recoil and the other one's for the gun elevation. And each servo is only held in there with one screw on a special cradle mount. So you kind of put one end, there's a slot that fits in where you can't see, and then the other end gets screwed in. So they're really durable and easy to take in and out. There's the recoil servo. And then the elevation. And on the front here, the actual gun mount, there's enough space to put a gun flash LED in the front, and then there's a machine gun port for a small 3mm LED, and the IR emitter port is right here for the 5mm infrared LED. And the night vision scope is, you don't need to use this. If you don't use this, it's just blank. I've seen some Scorpion tanks took that out for some reason, or maybe it just didn't come with one, but you can put it however you like. The kit will also come with the two different versions of the smoke grenades. There's a 4 launcher one and then a 3 launcher one that goes up here. And then when you need to put it back together, super easy. Just make sure all the wires are tucked in. Oh, one other thing I want to show you. To actually get access to the gun here, I made these special clips. You pop them up and use a needle nose. That's actually how the gun elevation stays in place. Since you can't really get in there with any screws or anything, I just used that. When you put it in there and push it down, there's a notch that holds these from backing out. But once you remove them, it's really easy to get this, or I have a zip tie here holding all the wires, so I don't want to pull it out, but you can see it's really easy to get access to that. And in here there are 2 ball bearings also. And then to put it back on, and this took me a while to come up with, because I know a lot of tanks, this is a very difficult part to access without taking everything apart. But then you just push the clips down, and when you snap the cover on, the cover sits across those so they can't accidentally pop up on their own. To put it in the front, there's like a lip that slides under there. And then make sure there's wires are out of the way. And it just snap fits on. Super easy maintenance and access. And then the lower hull to get at, the same exact clip mechanism is used here. You lift it up and pull it forward. You can see there's the little nub that it gets clipped on from here. And then on the inside of the whole hull, here's where you have your servo for rotation. I bought one of these 12-wire slip rings from China, so it gives it 360 degrees, and that's the exact amount of wires you need for all the functions up here is 12 wires. And the servo you have to modify for 360 degree rotation, which is pretty easy. There are videos and stuff online for how to do that. And everything looks kind of greasy because I sprayed some Corrosion X in here. I probably sprayed a little too much. It was leaking everywhere. But here's the Clark board. Underneath here there are 3 mounting holes printed into the part. There's also zip tie loops printed into this, like the skeleton everywhere. And you can fit in a standard size receiver. You don't really need any miniature RC stuff for this thing. This speaker I took out of, I think it was an iPod speaker, so I'm not sure where you can actually get a hold of this exact speaker, but the engine hatch, the holes are actually printed in there, so the sound from the speaker can get out easily. And for the turret and the lower hull, there's like a skeleton structure that you start with, and then you kind of glue the panels on, so it's really easy assembly. Let's see. It comes printed with a holder for a toggle switch for the main power, and the Henlong volume control screws in there. And there are also holes, like these lights are actually printed hollow. They'll come with little clear lenses too. Well, they're not totally clear, they're kind of frosted. But 3mm LEDs slide in through there and light up those. There's 4 of those. And then on here, the headlights are kind of snaked in through here. And then it's pretty easy to hook up once you're ready to actually use it. Just plug in each motor to the Clark board. And then plug in the battery. And then I have a little light plug here for the headlights. And I'm still working on the best layout to keep the wires out of the way as you close the hull. So it takes a little bit of fiddling to get the wires out of the way. But there we go. And then let me show you it running here. I use a Turnigy or FlySky 9X radio. I love these things. I have a Smarty Parts aftermarket board in there that changes the firmware. So the Clark board, you know, just like the Tamiya, you have to use like specific positions and functions to work each thing. Well, I programmed the Clark board here to automatically, like you see when I slowly move the thumbstick down, the channels change to simulate those specific movements. That's kind of the things that are possible with that firmware upgrade, but not necessary at all. You can still use the tank with even I think it's a 4-channel radio is all you would need. But power switch, there's a little voltage meter. You get those from Hobby King. They're only a couple bucks. I have those in all my RC stuff. I love those things. You can see when it drops down to like 6.5 or so, the battery's basically dead. And then I have a little micro switch there just to turn it off so you don't see it through the vent. And I used to have a Leopard 2 tank, so the sound set you're hearing is supposed to be for a Leopard 2A6 tank, so just ignore that. I didn't want to buy a whole new board just to change the sounds. But the gun elevation is pretty realistic. And 360-degree rotation with that slip ring. There's the recoil. And then machine gun. A lot of people don't know, but with the Clark boards, if you shoot machine guns at each other, at two Clark boards, they play like a machine gun ricochet sound. It's pretty cool. I don't think the Tamiyas do that. Because you can see with the machine gun, the IR is actually lighting up too. Let me just show you the inside here. Just so you can see all the gears and stuff working. And when you're at max elevation, the recoil doesn't recoil the fullest amount because it actually hits in the inside. Still does it a lot, but normally you don't have it at max elevation anyways. But the lowest elevation works just fine. And you can hear how loud the sound is coming out of there. You can find pretty loud small speakers. And let's show you the Apple here. The Clark boards come with, or you can buy a remote for them to actually like do testing and stuff. Because I don't actually have a second tank yet to test this thing out, but with this remote. So it's pretty nice. Me and one of my friends who lives locally, we are trying to start up a tank club. Last spring, there's another YouTube on my channel where last spring we had a little battle with my original prototype tank, which I actually gutted to make a new one. This was my old tank here. I changed so many things from the first design, like the suspension. After this section in the video, I go over the transmission and gears and stuff, and then at the end of the video, I show you it running around outside, so make sure to check that out. The transmission for the Scorpion uses a Tamiya double gearbox. It doesn't use all the parts from it, but it uses most of them. And you have several spares of gears and stuff when you buy that. Here's the actual transmission. Uses 370 sized motors. These ones right here are from the Kyosho Blizzard, but there's many different 370 motors out there. And the transmission's all 3D printed, and the final drive gears are printed in nylon plastic. I don't have the final design worked out yet because the Tamiya gearbox comes with this really special brass hex shaft collar. Haven't been able to find these anywhere else, so I'm trying to make it work with just normal circular shaft collars with a longer set screw. Still trying to find a good source for that though, but for now I just bought 2 gearbox kits and used that. And it looks like it's kind of flimsy, but it's not. Once you put it in the actual hull, here's the final drive gears in the hull. The final drive sprockets use a hex shaft. So the set screw that you're seeing here is only so it doesn't get pulled out, but this end of the hex shaft is super glued in there, and then this end has a shaft or a set screw on it. But when you put the transmission in here, those end gears actually kind of ride on the wall of the hull, which it totally works because they don't spin all that fast. There's just a slight gear reduction on the final drive there, but then you can use screws just to screw the drive or the transmission in. And then on top of that, there's a cover. Oh, this little wire is for the lights in front. When I sell the kit, there'll be these headlights that you can put either like this or on top, and then there'll also be headlights that look like this. These ones are printed onto that whole front panel, so there'll be a separate blank panel for that. But basically either choice you want. But there's a cover that goes over the transmission. Once you screw that in, it's like totally sealed from dust or dirt or anything. Like the walls of the transmission are flush with the hull, so there's no way any dirt or debris could ever get in your gears, which is really nice. And then in the back, I somehow managed to keep enough space for a standard 7.2 pack, which is pretty awesome. And then the suspension underneath, it uses piano wire, really thin gauge piano wire that you bend into an L shape, and the piano wire itself actually takes the load of the whole tank. On the inside here, you can see the screws here. The piano wire comes in from the side, and there's a little hook on the end that gets screwed in. And for each wheel, like the rear two wheels, it's a 90-degree hook, so it has more suspension or more strength. The middle two is only 45 degrees, so they're not quite as stiff, and the front one's another 90-degree bend. All the wheels and sprockets and the first set on the transmission are all ball bearings. Even the idler tension system in the back has 2 ball bearings in it, and this idler system actually works really nice. It just uses a small spring, and when you properly have your track set up, when it's normally resting at like normal height like that, you want your idler to be almost fully compressed, so then when you hit bumps and stuff, the idler will actually take up the slack of the track. It makes it very difficult to actually make the track fall off. And the whole system too, there's a slot here so you can adjust the actual tension on the spring. So it's very easy to adjust everything. So here's the idler tension system in action here. You can see as the whole tank compresses, that little spring on the back pushes the idler wheel out and keeps track tension. See, without that, if I hold my finger on it, other tanks without a spring system, as they hit large bumps, if you happen to be turning while it happens, all that slack would most likely pop up over the wheel. But with this, through the whole compression of the whole tank. Keeps pretty good tension on the whole track. So it's a very good system to have. And here are the tracks for the Scorpion. These are also 3D printed. They use small 18 gauge nails. Like, they're 3D printed with all the pinholes already drilled. And all you do is slide the nail in and it's like totally done and ready to go. Like, there's no finishing work to these at all. You also have to glue on the track pads also. The pads are printed in ABS plastic also. I tried using a kind of rubber filament, but it was really high gloss and you basically couldn't do any finishing work to it because it was just too flexible and it just didn't look very good at all. So I decided to just stick with ABS for the pads. You can see in this video me driving this around outside, and you can see it still has plenty of traction because they're actually kind of sharp edged, so it still has plenty of traction for just being plastic. And you can see just how nice the clearance is. This was literally taking it off the printer and putting nails in there. You can press them in with your hand and then use a needle nose pliers to just finish pushing them in there. But it's very easy when you get your kits. It only took me, I think it took me less than an hour to assemble all these. So it's just very easy.